Panettone is a sweet, buttery Italian bread usually served for dessert around the holidays, and it was always on our huge table of sweet goodies at our epic family get-togethers when I was a kid. Now, we have a pretty large extended Sicilian family, so I'm not even sure who brought this thing, but I did know that I loved it. Until I got a big old bite of fruit in my bread. Not a fan. Well, fast forward 35 years, and now I make it how I want, and it could not be more delicious. We first have to start off by making up a few different doughs. Sound good? Let's bake. Real quick though, I want to make some aromatics, some perfume for the bread, if you will. I have 1 tablespoon of honey in a small sized bowl. Next, we're going to finely grate in the zest of 2 medium-sized oranges. Then we're going to do the exact same thing with 1 lemon. Just going to use a butter knife to scrape all that goodness into the bowl. Now I have 1 fresh vanilla pod. We want to expose the beans. So to do this, I'm going to use a tourne knife, or a paring knife is fine. Go right down in the center and slice through, turn it, and do the exact same thing. Just going to tug it to pull it apart. Okay, perfect. There we go. Now using this knife, I'm going to scrape all of the beans out of the pods. Take this and put that right in that mixture. Perfect. A quick substitute for this would be 1 tablespoon of vanilla extract. Now, this part is optional, but I am going to add in 1.5 teaspoons of dark rum. It's going to add some great flavors to this. Then using a spoon or a small whisk, combine everything until it is completely combined. Then we're going to wrap it up in plastic, leave it at room temperature to marinate together for in between 12 and 24 hours. And Comies, not only is this going to give our panettone some incredible aromas and flavor, this is also going to help preserve it a little bit. The fermentation that's going to take place over the next several hours will help extend the shelf life of it by up to 15 days. It's amazing. And for the leftover vanilla pods, don't let those go to waste. You've seen me do this before. Add them to a container and completely cover them with regular granulated sugar. In a few days, boom, vanilla flavored sugar. It is so good to put on top of creme brulees, even to put in coffee. This will last covered at room temperature in your cabinet for up to 2 months. Now to make the first of our 3 doughs, this is a pre-ferment known as a Biga. You've seen me do this in my Camus flour bread recipe. This will help elevate our dough, making it rise all the way to the top. This is also sometimes known as a chariot. I have 1/3 cup of bread flour. Next, I'm going to add in a 1/2 teaspoon of granulated sugar, followed up with a 1/2 packet of active yeast. You could also use instant yeast or even fresh baker's yeast. Then I'm going to slowly pour in 3 tablespoons of cold water while starting to mix it with a spoon. Even a fork is fine. All you want to do is make sure the ingredients are completely combined and the flour is hydrated with the water. If you want, you can even use your hands if you'd like. Once it is combined, we're going to add a lid and let it sit and ferment for in between 10 and 24 hours at room temperature. I recommend going a full 24 hours. Doing it this long will help improve the texture, flavor, and overall shelf life of the panettone. So on the day you're ready to make that panettone bread, let's pull out our Biga. You can see that it has doubled or even tripled in size. It's got some nice fermenting bubbles going on in there. This is perfect. Let's briefly set this to the side. And now to make the second of 3 total doughs, I'm going to add in 1 2/3 cup plus 2 tablespoons of bread flour to the bowl of a stand mixer. Next, a 1/3 cup of granulated sugar, following up with the remaining 1/2 packet of that active yeast. Again, instant yeast is fine, or even fresh baker's yeast. Then using the paddle attachment, we are going to mix this on low speed while slowly pouring in a 1/2 cup of cold water. All we want to do is to get the ingredients combined until a dough starts to form and look just like this. Then at this stage, let's grab that 24-hour Biga, use a rubber spatula, and scrape all that goodness into the bowl. I'm going to turn the machine off so it's not flying all over the place. Then we're just going to let it mix on low speed for just 2 to 3 minutes, or until the Biga is completely incorporated into the dough. Next, we are adding in 3 total egg yolks, but only 1 at a time. Do not add the next yolk until the one before it is absorbed completely into the dough. This should take a total of 4 to 5 minutes. Then once the eggs are incorporated, I'm going to switch out the paddle attachment for the hook attachment. Continue on to low speed, and then we're going to add in 4 tablespoons of softened unsalted butter, a tablespoon at a time. And just like the eggs, do not add in the next tablespoon until the one before is completely absorbed into the dough. And then once that last tablespoon of butter is in there, we're going to continue to knead it on low speed for 4 to 5 minutes.
And look, it's definitely going to seem like nothing is happening, especially when you start putting in the butter. There's just this blob at the bottom. I promise you, though, you got to give it the full 6 to 7 minutes and things will absolutely come together. Do not lose patience. You can do this.
You know the dough is good when the bowl is clean in the area that the dough is being mixed. This looks perfect. At this stage, let's take the bowl off of the stand mixer and I'm transferring the dough into a separate container. Now I love these 4-quart Cambro containers because I can get a good picture on how much I need it to rise. And I'm looking for this to at least double in size. And you can do this covered sitting at room temperature for between 4 and 5 hours in a warm place. If not, you know my trick if you've seen me bake before. We're going in the oven. Make sure the oven's turned off and the door is cracked with just the oven light on. It creates a great proofing environment. If your door always wants to close, grab that wooden Italian spoon and just stick it in there. This will decrease the proofing time by about 20% and be all good to go in 3 to 3.5 hours. Then after that amount of time of proofing, let's bring it out. You can see we're at least 2 times bigger, almost 2.5 to 3 times of that original dough size. This looks awesome. And now to make this third final dough, let's add all of this risen dough to the bowl of a stand mixer with the hook attachment. We're next adding in 3/4 teaspoon of coarse salt, followed up with 1/3 cup of sugar, then 3/4 cup plus 2 tablespoons of bread flour. We're going to turn it on low speed and mix it just until all the ingredients are incorporated to that original dough, which takes maybe 3 to 4 minutes. Then similar to our second dough process, we are going to add in 2 egg yolks. We're not going to add in the next one until the one previously is completely absorbed into the dough. Then I have 3 tablespoons of softened unsalted butter. We're also going to add this in there, but not adding it until the tablespoon before is completely combined into it. Then what we want to do is knead the dough for 5 minutes on low speed. Again, it's not going to look like much at the beginning, but I promise it will come together and you'll notice that the bowl is cleaned up just like this. Now, the reason for all these doughs is to help provide structure, sustain long fermentation, and absorb incredibly high amounts of fat and sugar. Once it gets to this stage, let's go grab our aromatics that have been sitting for 24 hours. This is going to be so good in here. Let's scrape it in using a rubber spatula. Why do I always get this on the side of my mixer? This happens with everything I put in there. My bad. Once it's in there, we're again going to knead it for 4 to 5 minutes until it is combined into the dough and the bowl of the mixer is cleaned up where the dough is being kneaded. And in addition, at this stage, the dough should not be sticky at all and have excellent elasticity. Go ahead, give it a tug. It'll pull right back. This looks excellent. Let's set the stand mixer to the side, pull out the dough. Just going to form it into a ball here, and then what I want to do is stretch it out. This is very similar to my sourdough process. We want to help strengthen the gluten in the dough. So I like to stretch it until it's about 12 to 14 inches wide by about 18 inches in length. It does not have to be perfect, but you will see that it's nice and flat and fairly even in all areas. Next, I have a total of 1 1/4 cups of semi-sweet chocolate chips. We are going to take about 2/3 of that and evenly sprinkle that all over the dough. Then I want to fold the bottom third over to the center. You may need to use a bench knife. Then doing that same process to the top part, fold it down over that initial fold. Then let's take half of the remaining chocolate chips and put them right over the top of this fold. This looks great and it does not have to be perfect in any way. Now let's fold right to left over to the center. Let's take the remaining chocolate chips, sprinkle them over the top of that fold, and then fold left over right. Now, using your bench knife, we are going to scrape and turn the dough to make it taut, and so all the seams are underneath the dough, just like this. Remember to stop throughout this entire process to take in all the wonderful smells and scents of this bread. Now, carefully transfer the dough into a panettone mold. I just picked these up on Amazon. I think they're 4 1/4 inches by 7.5 inches or something around that size. You can substitute with a 4-inch deep by 6-inch to 8-inch wide cake pan if the molds are not an option. Now, you have a couple choices here for this next fermentation process. First things first though, if you don't want to make this until tomorrow, you can completely cover it and place it in the refrigerator. The next day, pull it out and use one of these two procedures. It needs to be completely covered and can be at room temperature for in between 12 and 15 hours. Or you can place it in the oven, make sure the oven's off with the door slightly cracked and the oven light on for as little as 8 to 10 hours. You want this dough to completely rise where the dough is just touching that top part edge of our panettone mold. Either of those work, the decision is yours.
And if you've been following me for a little while, you know that I'm not a huge fan of fruit in my cakes or breads, at least most of the time. But there are a few classical ingredients that you can use if you want, starting with candied peel, like orange or lemon. You would need about a third cup or 50 grams of that. The next ingredient would be citron, also a third cup or 50 grams. Now you can use this dry or soak it in a little bit of rum ahead of time. Just make sure it's dried before you use it. Now the other one is a very traditional ingredient, and that's raisins. I just can't do raisins in bread. I'm sorry, I cannot do it. If you want to do it, 2/3 cup or 100 grams, you're going to want to completely soak this in water for about 5 hours and then dry them out very well. They'll be a little plump and fluffy. That's totally fine. Now, if you didn't soak them at all, what that will do is pull from the hydration in the bread and make your bread very dry. Now, you would use these in the exact same process, just like when I laid out and pulled out that dough and then put all the chocolate chips on there. You would do the same thing with the peel, the citron, or the raisins. You be the judge. I like chocolate chips. Do what you want.
So my dough has been fermenting using that oven trick with the light for about 8 hours. Let's take it out and have a quick look. Beautiful. This is exactly what we're looking for. The dome of our bread should at least be 1 inch over the top edge of our panettone mold. What we are going to do at this stage is let it sit at room temperature uncovered for an additional 30 minutes. After that time, we want to score the bread. So you're going to need a razor, a bread lame, or a very sharp tournet or paring knife. We want to make a little T or cross going in as shallow as 1/8 to 1/4 inch on the top of our panettone. Do not go any deeper. There is no need. And this looks fantastic. To finish off, let's add 1 teaspoon of softened unsalted butter right to the center of that T score. Then we're going on a lower third rack in the oven at 350 degrees Fahrenheit convection, so that means fan on. If there's no fan, you want to do it at 375. We're going to bake it for a total of 50 to 55 minutes, but I'm going to come back after 30 minutes and give it a quick look. If you notice your bread is turning way too brown way too quickly, simply add a sheet of foil over top. Don't even worry about forming it, and turn the oven temperature down 25 degrees. So we would be at 325 degrees Fahrenheit, convection, fan on. When the panettone bread is done, it should have a beautiful dark brown crust on the outside and read 195 degrees Fahrenheit internally right in the center of the bread. This looks absolutely stunning. The smells are incredible. And that is why I always say understanding these fundamental cooking and baking techniques always makes amazing food and the best memories. This simple, sweet bread takes me right back to some incredible times as a kid. So powerful and crazy how it can do that. All right, let me show you how we cool this down without letting it fall. Then we're going to take a big old slice and try it out. So for this next exercise, you're going to need some extra long skewers. If you've got some from the barbecue pit, perfect. I have a few extra from some friends who brought some back from Turkey, and they're about 18 inches long. You want to stick them through 1 inch from the bottom of the bread and about 2 to 3 inches apart from one another. Next, we want to completely flip the bread over with the skewers that are hanging out on either side, resting on some sort of platform. I've got equal size 1 gallon Cambro containers. Honestly, anything will work. You just need to get it upside down. We're going to let it cool in this position for in between 2 and 3 hours. We just want to bring it to room temperature. And then once it's cooled down, all we do is flip the bread back over, remove the skewers, and then slice it in any way that you want. I'm going straight down the center because I want to see what I'm working with. Oh my gosh. Buttery, flaky, sweet, light. Oh, cannot wait to try this.
Now, does this take a little time to make? Of course. Is it hard? Nah, it's not so bad. but the incredible flavors and memories that can come from this have a power to last a lifetime. I think if you give it a try, you and your family and friends are really going to like it. And if you have a sweet tooth like we do, then you absolutely have to check out my grandma's famous ass cookies. Oh, they are incredible. I have a great recipe video. I'll see you on there. I need some coffee.